supply chain control, and verification for timber auction. Forests play an important role in mitigating climate change, protecting biodiversity, and in the economic development of Laos. However, forests are under threat because of the conversion to other land uses and especially because of illegal logging. One major strategy that the government of Lao PDR is embarking on is FLEGT, Forest Law Enforcement, Governance and Trade. It aims to promote good governance in the forest sector, which will bolster poverty reduction and sustainable management of natural resources. Since 2017, Laos is negotiating a FLEGT VPA, or Voluntary Partnership Agreement, with the EU. This VPA defines the commitments and actions of both sides in their effort to address illegal logging. Once signed and implemented, the VPA will ensure the legality of timber, both timber for export and timber used domestically. For Laos, the FLEGT VPA means more than just ensuring legality of wood. It's an opportunity to reform the forest sector and strengthen the country's domestic wood industry. Since 2013, the German government supports Laos in the preparation and conduct of the VPA negotiations. This includes a multi-stakeholder dialogue process between government, private sector, and civil society organizations. The final aim is to set up a national TLAS, a Timber Legality Assurance System, which is the centerpiece of all VPAs. A TLAS consists of 5 main elements. It defines what constitutes legally produced timber, how to control the supply chain, how to verify legally sourced timber, and how to issue licenses. It also requires independent monitoring to ensure that the system works well. However, regardless of whether the timber is exported or processed and used domestically, it's important to ensure legality of the entire sector. It's important to understand where timber is coming from. In Laos, there are currently 4 primary timber sources. Logs from production forest and conversion areas are collected first within the forest or close to the harvesting area, log landing 1. The logs are transported to log landing 2, a central place close to the production forest area or conversion area, where logs are measured and graded. Non-native timber species from plantations can be directly transported via traders to the processing companies or to the point of export. Native timber species from plantations cannot be exported. Timber from village forests is limited to a customary use only and cannot be used for commercial purposes. Timber from 4 primary sources that was not harvested in legal manner and cannot be traced back to its origin shall be confiscated by the authorities. Following the Prime Minister's Order No. 15, all timber from natural production forests and conversion areas, as well as confiscated timber, has to be formally auctioned. The revenue from the sale of timber contributes directly to the budget of the government. In order to improve auction procedures and increase auction revenues, the Lao government is working on simplifying current regulations and providing capacity-building measures for involved state agencies. Selling timber through auctions also ensures complete transparency of all transactions. While buyers can claim legality for the timber purchased, the state can yield higher prices by creating competition among buyers. Starting prices for timber are determined by the Lao government and regularly updated by the Ministry of Industry and Commerce based on observations of local and international markets. Timber harvested from natural forests is transported to a central place called log yard or log landing 2. Here, the buyers can inspect the logs. Forestry staff of the Provincial Agriculture and Forestry Office is responsible for measuring, grading, and marking all logs and recording everything in a log list, which will be the basis for auctioning the timber. Remote forest areas are especially vulnerable to illegal logging. Near the Vietnamese border, for instance, government law enforcement agencies have confiscated large amounts of valuable hardwoods in the past. Confiscated timber is mainly stored at secure locations of the Provincial Office for Forest Inspection, POFI, or the compounds of customs checkpoints at international borders. POFI staff measure all confiscated timber to calculate its volume accordingly. It is then recorded and treated as case evidence for prosecution. When confiscated timber comes in small pieces, which is often the case for rosewood, it is not feasible to measure each individual item. Instead, the pieces are weighed and a volume estimation is provided based on the timber species density. Once timber lists are created, PAFO informs the Provincial Office of Industry and Commerce, which then combines logs into auction batches. Ideally, auction batches contain logs or processed timber of the same species and similar quality grades. If this is not possible, species of similar wood properties are combined in a mixed auction batch. All batches are registered with the Office for the Management of State Assets under the Provincial Office of Finance. POIC heads the Provincial Timber Auction Committee, which also includes representatives from financial and forestry authorities. Interested buyers are encouraged to inspect the timber for auction at the different storage locations. Timber auctions are announced publicly about 2 weeks prior to the auction meeting to ensure participation, increase competition during the bidding, and boost state revenues. The auction itself is usually held at the POIC office. The auction committee checks the documentation submitted by eligible buyers, as well as the registration of bidding prices of bidders for each individual auction lot. In the next step, all bids are announced to participants and the winning bid is shown on the screen. Bids can be unsuccessful if the starting price is not met. Buyers have to pay the total amount for the purchased timber and submit copies of bank receipts to POIC and the Office for the Management of State Assets. After payment, the batch list will be deleted from the Register of State Assets. With the confirmation of payment, the buyer can request a transport permit issued by the PAFO Forestry Section to load the timber at the storage site or log landing 2 for transport to the processing facility. This system of auctioning timber from natural forests and confiscated timber as a national state asset increases competition between buyers, yields maximum revenues for the state, and ensures transparency on all ends. With this, the proper timber auction documentation becomes a main evidence for legally sourced timber from production forest and conversion areas for the confiscated timber.